I'm 75 now, and I can't remember anybody except the Queen being there.
The United Kingdom was left stunned. A simple remark, innocent on the surface, sent shockwaves through the palace gates. A truth, buried beneath decades of carefully constructed appearances, had been laid bare by a child. And not just any child. Prince Louis, a young royal barely old enough to understand the weight of his lineage, had unknowingly pulled back the velvet curtain on a scandal that had long simmered in silence. It happened in a moment of pure honesty, a family gathering where warmth and tradition were supposed to take center stage. But instead of adding another polished, picture-perfect memory to the monarchy's ever-growing archive, Louis uttered a statement so unexpected, so unfiltered, that it left those present frozen in place. He had been asked a simple question: why hadn't Queen Camilla's name appeared in his handwritten note of gratitude? His response, delivered with the innocence only a child could possess, landed like a thunderclap. "She promised to play with me, but called me annoying instead." The weight of those words settled over the room like an unspoken truth finally spoken aloud. The Queen Consort, the woman who had spent years rehabilitating her public image, had been exposed, not by journalists, not by former royal aides, but by a young prince too small to understand the magnitude of his revelation. All eyes darted toward Camilla. Her expression, so often controlled, polished, unreadable, flickered for just a moment. A flash of something. Shock? Annoyance? Guilt? It was impossible to tell, but the tension in the air had already betrayed the truth. Kate Middleton, ever the composed figure, moved quickly. A gentle touch on Louis's shoulder, a whisper in his ear. But it was too late. The words had been spoken, and the whispers had already begun. Was this just a child's fleeting observation, or had Louis unknowingly confirmed a rift that had long been kept out of sight? For years, Camilla had fought to secure her place in the monarchy. From mistress to wife, from wife to queen consort, her journey had been relentless. And yet, at that moment, the fairy tale she had so carefully constructed seemed to unravel at the hands of a boy who had no reason to lie. Prince Louis was too young to understand the complexities of royal politics, too young to know how history had shaped the very family he belonged to. But his words, so simple and so stark, told a different story. A story that suggested that behind the carefully curated image of unity, something was still amiss. The room had fallen into an uneasy silence. Queen Camilla, for all her years of royal training, did not speak. She didn't have to. The weight of the moment had spoken for her. But then, just as the air seemed thick enough to suffocate, another voice cut through the quiet. Princess Charlotte, ever the watchful sister, ever the one to step in when her younger brother needed her, did something that no one expected. She nodded. A simple, almost imperceptible nod. But it was enough. Enough to confirm that what Louis had said was not a mistake, not a misunderstanding. It was real, it was true. In that single moment, the unshakable facade of the royal family wavered, and as the whispers turned into quiet, hurried discussions among guests, one question loomed larger than the rest. Had Queen Camilla been hiding something all along? Let's rewind to the moment when Louis unknowingly shook the monarchy. It was meant to be a simple gesture, a moment of warmth and gratitude, a gathering where messages of love and appreciation would be shared among family and friends. But within seconds, an innocent remark turned the atmosphere ice cold. Prince Louis, the youngest of the Wales children, stood proudly, his small hands gripping a card filled with heartfelt words. A card meant to celebrate those he held dear. His parents, his siblings, and his grandparents all acknowledged with simple yet sincere gratitude. But there was one name missing. One absence that stood out more than any presence. It was a guest, a well-meaning onlooker who asked the question that changed everything. "Louis, what about Queen Camilla?" Silence. A brief pause. A moment so small, yet so powerful, that even those who hadn't been paying attention suddenly found themselves listening. And then, without hesitation, without awareness of the weight of his words, Louis answered. "She promised to play with me, but called me annoying instead." The air shifted. Conversations quieted. A glance was exchanged between William and Kate, brief but telling. Camilla's expression, usually so carefully composed, betrayed something unspoken. Surprise-y? Embarrassment? Guilt? Louis, blissfully unaware of the tension now crackling around him, continued, "She just sat there. She didn't do anything." His words landed like a thunderclap. In a world where every royal interaction is scrutinized, where the line between private and public is drawn with the finest ink, this was something unexpected, something raw, something real. Kate's fingers tightened around the edge of her dress, her practiced smile faltering for just a second. William, though trained in the art of emotional restraint, seemed visibly uneasy. "Camilla?" She said nothing. She didn't have to. The public. Queen Camilla had spent years crafting an image of warmth and acceptance within the royal family. She had fought battles against perception and worked tirelessly to transition from scandal to sovereignty. But in that moment, the illusion cracked. The perfect picture of a blended monarchy where past wounds had healed and old feuds had been set aside no longer seemed so convincing. Louis had spoken the truth, not the diplomatic rehearsed truth of the monarchy, but the truth as only a child can tell it. Was this just a misunderstanding, a fleeting moment soon to be forgotten, or was it something deeper, a glimpse into the unspoken dynamics that had long existed behind the palace walls? Because if Louis's words had revealed anything, it was that the divide, the distance, was real. And if that weren't enough, the way Charlotte reacted next would leave no doubt. Princess Charlotte has always been different, poised, observant, and far more perceptive than a child her age should be. Unlike her younger brother who wears his emotions on his sleeve, Charlotte understands the weight of her last name. She knows the expectations, the rules, and the unspoken commands hidden in glances and smiles. She watches, she learns, and when the moment calls for it, she acts. At every royal event, eyes naturally drift toward the young princess, not because she demands attention, but because she carries herself like someone who knows she is being watched. Every step, every gesture, every interaction, carefully measured, subtly refined. And perhaps the most telling aspect of all? The way she guards her brother ensures that his boundless energy and unfiltered honesty don't lead him astray. It's a pattern that's been seen time and time again. Louis is full of life, full of curiosity, and eager to embrace the world in ways only a child can. And Charlotte, always one step behind, always ready to guide him back to where he should be. It happened again, most recently at a garden party meant to celebrate unity and kindness. The setting was picturesque, the mood light. But when Louis, overwhelmed by the sea of unfamiliar faces, began shifting nervously, it was Charlotte who reached for his hand. A small gesture, one that might have gone unnoticed if not for the weight it carried. She whispered something, gentle, reassuring, and just like that, Louis settled. No grand gestures, no dramatic discipline, just the quiet authority of an older sister who understood far more than she let on. But what was truly remarkable wasn't just her ability to calm him. It was the way she looked around, taking in the reactions, the shifting expressions of those present. She saw everything. The polite smiles that masked discomfort, the quiet exchanges between adults who pretended not to have heard Louis's earlier remark about Camilla. The way her father's face tensed ever so slightly, and the way her mother, always composed, always graceful, worked to keep the moment from unraveling. And then there was Camilla. Sitting at a distance, engaged in conversation but detached, Charlotte saw the space between them, both physical and emotional, the absence of warmth, the formality that never quite softened into familiarity. She knew, perhaps in a way Louis did not, that not all relationships in the royal family were as seamless as they appeared. This wasn't just about guiding her younger brother, it was about understanding the truth behind the carefully curated image, about knowing that some divides, no matter how much effort is made to close them, remain unspoken, unacknowledged, but undeniably real. And as Charlotte stood there, hand in hand with Louis, the weight of history lingered in the air, because this wasn't just about her, or her brother, or even Camilla. This was about a past that had never truly faded, a shadow that still stretched over the present, a shadow cast by a woman whose presence had been erased but never forgotten. Because the answer to this distance, this unspoken divide, wasn't just in their interactions today, it was rooted in the complicated history between Camilla and Princess Diana. The past still lingers like a ghost within the walls of the royal family, no matter how much time has passed. No matter how carefully history has been rewritten, one name still casts a long, unshakable shadow: Diana. Her presence may have been erased from the palace corridors, her voice silenced by tragedy, but the echoes of her story refuse to fade. And for Prince William, her eldest son, that shadow follows him with every step he takes. He was just a boy when he watched his mother fight against a system that never fully accepted her. He witnessed her tears, her struggles, her desperate attempts to hold on to a marriage that had already been lost to another woman. And that woman was Camilla. Diana had once spoken the truth in a single devastating sentence. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. The world had gasped at her words, but no one had felt them more deeply than William. He had grown up in the middle of that chaos, watching his mother battle forces far beyond her control. And when she was gone, when the crash in Paris took her from him forever, William was left to piece together the broken fragments of his past. He had no choice but to move forward, to carry the weight of his grief in silence. But there was one thing he never forgot: who had stood beside his father long before Diana was gone. Camilla's presence in William's life was unavoidable. She had been the woman in the background, the one who had caused whispers to turn into scandals, the reason his mother had suffered in the public eye. Yet, over the years, she had been rebranded. No longer the woman who had disrupted a marriage, but now the queen consort, the wife of his father, the step-grandmother to his children. And William, raised under the unrelenting pressure of royal duty, did what was expected of him. He remained polite, respectful, and measured in his words and actions, but behind the carefully controlled interactions, behind the handshakes and formal smiles, there was always a quiet distance, a space that could never be closed. Kate understood this unspoken conflict. She had seen how William carried his mother's memory like a hidden wound, how he spoke of Diana not as a historical figure, but as a guiding force in his life. She knew that despite the public efforts to portray unity, there would always be a divide, a line that William could not cross, and so she followed his lead. She ensured their children were courteous and respectful in public, but she never forced closeness where it did not exist. Their children, in turn, naturally gravitated toward her family. The Middletons provided the warmth, the stability, the kind of normalcy that had been absent from William's childhood. They were his true source of comfort, the family that filled the void left by Diana's absence. Camilla, meanwhile, found solace in her bloodline. She spent time with her biological grandchildren, doting on them and embracing them in a way that was rarely seen with the Wales children. It wasn't out of malice or neglect, it was simply the reality of 2 separate worlds, 2 families that had been stitched together but never truly fused. The quiet divide was there for those who looked closely enough. The public rarely saw it, but the royal family lived within it every day. And yet, it was at the grandest of royal traditions that this unspoken separation was laid bare for the world to see. Because while some wounds can be hidden behind palace doors, others reveal themselves in moments too public to ignore. The first real glimpse of this quiet divide came during Trooping the Colour. And it was then that the world realized, despite the carefully managed narrative, that the royal family was far from whole. For the royal family, appearances are everything. Public events are orchestrated with precision and designed to project unity, tradition, and continuity. But beneath the polished image, there are fractures, subtle yet undeniable. And nowhere is this more apparent than in the quiet divide between Queen Camilla and the children of Prince William and Princess Kate. At every grand occasion, the Wales children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, are the very image of youthful charm. They laugh, they engage, and they carry themselves with the ease of children who are deeply connected to their parents. Whether standing beside King Charles or playfully interacting with Kate and William, they exude warmth. But if one looks closely, a pattern emerges, one that tells a far more revealing story. While the Wales children remain closely tied to their immediate family, Camilla exists on the periphery. At royal gatherings, she is present but separate. It isn't hostility, nor is it outright exclusion. It is something less obvious, yet equally striking, a quiet, unspoken distance. She moves comfortably within her circle, gravitating toward her biological grandchildren, the children of her first marriage. Unlike William's children, they share no complicated history and no legacy of tension. With them, Camilla is relaxed, her interactions natural and effortless. But with George, Charlotte, and Louis, there's a different energy, a formality, a restraint. And while the public has long speculated about the nature of this relationship, there was one moment, a seemingly insignificant act, that exposed the depth of this divide. During a recent gathering, young Prince Louis, in his usual carefree manner, plucked a flower from the garden and ran toward Camilla, his small hand offering the delicate bloom as a gift. It was a moment that should have been heartwarming, a simple, innocent gesture from a child to his step-grandmother. But Camilla's reaction was unexpected. Instead of the warmth one might expect, there was hesitation, a fleeting expression of discomfort. She took the flower, yes, but there was something restrained in her response, something that spoke volumes to those paying attention. Moments like this happen often, yet they go largely unnoticed in the grand spectacle of royal life. They don't make headlines, they aren't the subject of official statements, but they are there, visible in the way Christmas gatherings unfold. Year after year, as the royal family comes together to celebrate, the separation remains clear. Camilla, surrounded by her own, William's children sticks close to their parents and grandfather. The photographs are carefully arranged, the optics managed with precision, but even the most carefully crafted images cannot erase the reality of what is happening. This divide is not the result of public feuds or overt hostility. It is more complex than that. It is a reflection of something deeper, something rooted in history and personal experience. It is a reflection of the different paths that led Camilla and William's family to this moment. And perhaps at its core, it is a reflection of two entirely different approaches to family itself. But why does this divide exist? The answer may lie in William and Kate's modern parenting style. For generations, royal children were raised behind palace walls, groomed for duty before they could even understand what duty meant. Their emotions were managed, their voices restrained, and their childhoods more structured than sentimental. But William and Kate have rewritten the rules. They are not simply raising heirs to the throne, they are raising children. And they are doing it the Middleton way. Unlike past monarchs who saw parenting as an obligation rather than a privilege, William and Kate are hands-on and present in the day-to-day lives of their children. They don't just oversee their upbringing, they shape it. Their approach is rooted in warmth, connection, and something the royal family has often struggled with: normalcy. From the moment Prince George was born, it was clear that William and Kate were breaking tradition. There would be no cold detachment, no formal interactions dictated by outdated customs. Instead, their children would be raised with the freedom to express themselves, to feel, to laugh, to question, a stark contrast to the rigid, emotionally distant upbringings of those who came before them. Kate's influence in this shift is undeniable. As the daughter of commoners, she experienced a childhood unlike anything William ever knew. In the Middleton household, love wasn't measured in grand ceremonies or official duties, it was found in shared meals, in laughter-filled family vacations, in simple moments of togetherness. And now she is giving that same experience to her children. The Wales kids don't just exist within the royal machine, they thrive outside of it. They bake cookies with their grandmother Carol, run through the gardens of their family home, and enjoy holidays where cameras aren't flashing at every turn. The Middleton family is their anchor, a constant presence of stability and affection, something William never had after his mother's passing. The difference between this and the relationship they share with Camilla is undeniable. With the Middletons, love is easy, natural, effortless. With Camilla, it is distant, formal, restrained by the weight of history. There are no casual visits, no spontaneous moments of bonding. Their connection is built on necessity rather than genuine closeness, and no amount of public appearances can change that. The emotional gap between Camilla and William's children isn't just about personality, it is about legacy. Camilla's role in the royal family will always be tied to the past, to the pain that still lingers in William's heart. And as much as she may try to integrate into their world, she remains an outsider in the eyes of those who matter most. But even as Camilla tries to adapt, public perception remains divided. For decades, Camilla has fought an uphill battle. Once the most hated woman in Britain, she endured relentless scrutiny, whispered accusations, and the shadow of a woman whose legacy refuses to fade. She has walked a fine line between redemption and rejection, tirelessly working to reshape her public image. But even now, as Queen Consort, acceptance still feels just out of reach. No title can erase the past. No royal decree can silence the memory of Diana. To millions, she was more than just a princess, she was a symbol, a force of nature, a woman who redefined the role of royalty, and her tragic end only cemented her as an icon, forever untouchable. That is the weight Camilla carries. No matter how much she smiles, no matter how dutiful she remains, she will always be compared to the woman whose presence still lingers in the hearts of the people. The public watches her every move, scrutinizing even the smallest interactions, especially when it comes to the Wales children. Every glance, every exchange with Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis is dissected, analyzed, and debated. Does she truly belong? Is she a warm and loving grandmother, or merely a tolerated presence? Camilla has worked hard to appear as a devoted step-grandmother, but the truth is harder to disguise. There is a wall, a quiet, invisible barrier that even time cannot seem to break. She is a queen, but she is not their queen. She is family, but not their family. And for all the progress she has made, there remains a distance that cannot be bridged by royal protocol or public relations campaigns. It is not hostility, it is not resentment, it is something far more complicated, something that exists in the space between history and the present, between what was and what will never be. The question now is not whether Camilla will ever be fully accepted. That answer has long been decided. The real question is, what does the future hold for the young royals? The future of the monarchy rests on the shoulders of a new generation, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. As they grow, the world watches closely, waiting to see how they will navigate the weight of their family's past. But one question remains unanswered. Will they ever fully embrace Camilla as their grandmother, or will the unspoken history that haunts the royal family continue to define their relationship with her? For now, the distance remains. It is not spoken of in words, but it is there, lingering in careful interactions and restrained formalities. The Wales children have been raised in a world vastly different from the one their father grew up in. They are encouraged to express their emotions, to question tradition, to define their paths. They are not afraid to speak their truth, even when it disrupts the carefully curated image of the monarchy. Louis's innocent remark about Camilla was not just a fleeting moment of childhood honesty. It was a glimpse into something deeper, a reflection of a bond that never fully formed. Perhaps, with time, that bond could change. Perhaps George, as the future king, will find a way to bridge the gap. Perhaps Charlotte, with her keen sense of observation and emotional intelligence, will seek understanding. Perhaps Louis, the most unfiltered of them all, will one day see Camilla in a different light. Or perhaps the distance will only grow, not out of malice, but out of the simple reality that some relationships are never meant to be more than polite. One thing is certain, the next generation of royals will not be bound by the same constraints that defined those before them. They will redefine the monarchy in their own way, with their values. But as much as they look toward the future, the past still lingers. Some wounds, no matter how much time passes, never fully heal. The monarchy is evolving, but old wounds still remain. What happens next is anyone's guess. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.